quick break. I just want to say thank you for all the people around the world, Jamaica, Germany, Asia, Europe, South America. Thank you for listening to Leap of Health. Thank you for the support. And remember, my book is out. You can find it on Barnes & Nobles and Amazon. It's called Parents Are Greatest Teachers. Thank you again for all the support. And now, back to our episode. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Alex Valgood, and this is Leap of Health. And today we have a super special guest today. I love her. I'm a fan. She's great. She's a celebrity psychic. She's a podcaster, actress, singer, writer. I mean, everything. And you're just so inspiring for the world. And thank you. Thank you for making the time and being here today with us.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I love to connect with you. I love your podcast and working with you in general. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Laura. And you're here today because we're doing a 10-part series, Healing Through Cultivating Art. So we're going to be talking about that. But before that, tell us a little bit about your story for the people that don't know you yet much.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just kind of start way back since we're talking about art specifically. So I was born in France and I was born to two hippie musicians. So I basically grew up, traveling, going on tour with them. They were definitely in that sort of starving artist moniker though. So they were not making a lot of money, but, they were living the dream in terms of, working through art and music. And so I grew up in this very artistic family and then moved to the United States when I was 5. I left my father and ended up moving first to California and then Colorado. And so I grew up always being very artistic, very creative, did acting and music from a young age, and also drawing and painting. I used to do a lot of drawing and painting. This was before the internet was, developed. So, now I feel like people just watch videos and kind of escape through media and social media, but I didn't have that. So I would read a lot, consume a lot of books, and I would also draw and paint. And then as I got older, I started to focus more on music and acting in terms of my creativity, but I love being creative in all the different ways. And I think it's so, so important. And one of the things that I've been really having to do is work through and clear that sort of starving artist mentality. There's a lot of poverty mentality within those who are creative. And it's such a shame because like literally almost nothing happens without creativity and art. Like literally almost everything that is valued in the world is done through creativity, and specifically even financially, one of the most valued assets are, important works of art. They accumulate in terms of value at a much higher rate than almost any other asset. So that's really interesting. So that's my sort of early history. And then I started working in government politics, and I also have a lot of psychic abilities. At that time, I was very shut down. And when I tapped back into my psychic abilities, because I had a life crisis during the housing crash and bubble of 08, 09, I sort of went back to my creative side as well as tapped into my psychic abilities. And so that's where I am now, working both as a psychic and also I describe myself as a creative entrepreneur. So, acting, modeling, singing, writing, kind of just doing whatever creative thing I feel like doing at the time.
Yeah, I know. That's great. You literally do it all. See? No, that's awesome. And I like that you mentioned that, a lot of people just still this mentality of like the starving artist. And it's kind of sucks because it's like you could be really even just changing the mindset. You will probably be getting a lot of more gigs or more jobs, or you will probably be a lot better on whatever it is, craft or art thing that you do. So I think that's a really important thing to point that out.
Yeah, I think so many people that are creative are on some level, they're really trying to help and heal people, even if it's an unconscious kind of desire. And there's definitely a lot of sort of self-sacrificial patterns that are wrapped up in that. And like it, in order to help others, you have to sacrifice yourself. Like there's a losing side, which I don't believe is true in terms of spiritual principles. I absolutely believe in the win-win, that a rising tide lifts all ships. If something is good for someone else, could be good for you too. And so I think for all of us who are creative, and I think everyone is creative to a degree, just some more so than others, that it's really important that we honor and hold our value. And as we do that, we model that for other people. And I know that I get a lot of people who are a bit triggered by my pricing, for example, like what I charge for my services, because I'll just say I'm not low cost. But the truth is we all are valuable. And the only person who's going to show the world the value is yourself.
Mhm.
And then once you do that, you attract people who also value you. And then you also show others how to do that. So I think if you're being triggered by someone else charging a lot or something else being expensive, turn that around to say, oh, like wouldn't that be amazing for me? Like I was just reading that Beyonce had her first show in years. I think it was 4 years. It was at the opening of a very fancy hotel in Dubai. And I think she made it was something like, it was over 20 million for that one concert.
Just
US dollars.
20 million.
Over that, I think it was around 24, something like that. Anyway, and I was just like, oh my gosh, just thinking about making that much money for like one night and how incredible that is and what's possible. And so rather than being jealous or triggered, think like, oh my gosh, what if I could have that? How amazing would that be? What could I do? How much could I help the world? Because if you have more, you can obviously give more. So instead of thinking of it as like a competition or judgment thing, think what could I do? What would I do if I had so much abundance for my creative gifts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Do you think it's just like that, kind of like sit on the thought of you're not a starving actor or artist in general, and really like moving on from the thought? Is it just something that we get to practice? Because I know we talk about wealth and it's not like, okay, I'm gonna just charge a lot or I'm gonna start charging for whatever artistic thing that I do now. Is it gradually that we change, or is it just like we can start charging a lot of money for what, like start value? How do we value ourselves, I guess?
I know that it's such a difficult thing, especially for those of us who really are healers and helpers and we want to help the world. And we often forget ourselves and what we need. And the truth is, again, if we're not holding that value, no one else is going to do it for us. People aren't, generally speaking, going to be like, oh, you're not charging here, let me just pay you or whatever. Like, it doesn't tend to work that way. So I think it is about gradually, making incremental changes. I think is a really positive way to do it. When you first get started out, you might be charging minimally or maybe even not charging, but only do that just right away at the beginning. Or maybe you're taking classes where you're paying, but that should only be for a period of time. And then you pretty quickly need a shift. So when I started my psychic and intuitive business, Healing Powers, I raised my prices. I think I doubled my prices 2 times in 1 year. And I remember feeling like, oh, this is hard. Like it felt so hard to do that.
Right.
And the fascinating thing was that the more I valued myself, the more other people did. And I very distinctly remember the first time I got someone who found me not through my circle, meaning they weren't somebody that I knew, and they just booked on my website. And I think that was the first time I was charging $200 an hour, which at the time was a lot of money for me. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh. And he was the most appreciative client I think I'd ever had to that point. So as I raised my value, I attracted someone who also valued it. And there is an interesting thing that is talked about in sort of coaching circles, professional development circles, where frequently the clients that are paying the least are kind of the most demanding. And in a way, it makes sense. They kind of need the most help. Right. And I have a lot of clients that pay me, like we work in sort of package situations where they're paying me, 5 figures or, multiple 5 figures at a time. And they're so appreciative. They get great results, but they're also not really demanding of me. Like I give them the guidance and the tools and they make the changes and they see results. So I think it's important for us to think about, what are we attracting with our pricing? And the analogy the spirit guides have given me is the Netflix queue, that we attract whatever we sort of watch in our life or whatever we engage with. Just like there's that algorithm in Netflix, whatever you watch, you get more of
Yes.
that suggested in your queue. Like if you go on someone else's Netflix, it looks very different than yours, right? And so it's up to us to cultivate that. So for example, this past year, I made the most I've ever made on television. And I generally do paid television work unless it's something that I think is going to be developing something that's helpful for me for my reel or some professional connections or something. But I'm very aware of not just giving my time and energy away. And as a result of that, I submit for paid things and then I get paid things. So if you're continually just giving your art away or giving your creative, endeavors away, your talent, your time and energy, then that's what you're going to continue to receive in your sort of universal Netflix queue.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that happened to me too 2 years ago when I used to teach all these classes, and I will just accept anything from the studios. They'll be like, oh, you know what, we're paying this much. And I will be like, yes, I just want to teach. I just want to be, with friends and make new friends and all these things. But then listening to you, listening to other people like Karen Orley with that talks about wealth and all that, I started actually raising my prices. And it's so true and crazy and funny at the same time, because people, if they like what you do and they value also what you're putting out there, they will pay you what you ask. And I almost doubled the price from what I was getting paid from the studios. And people were like fine with it. And I was like, and I just tested too. I was like, let's see if they pay me. And they
Yeah.
actually did. But I think it's just, even if you start just kind of like testing and do it little by little, you'll be surprised on how people will react to your value, what you're putting out there, and how much you want to pay, and how you want to go about that when it comes to wealth and artistic things, especially because I feel like all artists, we have this like, I don't know, are they gonna still like me? And
Yeah. And the more
yeah.
confidence you get, I think the easier it is, and you start to develop that confidence and also cultivate the types of clients and customers that you want, right? So I'm very clear. I want clients and customers who value what I offer, who are happy and willing to pay. And the thing is, I work with people and they get results. So like I'm just working with a client who's signing up for a big package, and she went from not making very much money to making six figures this past year working with me. And now I fully believe that she can make multiple six figures. So also when someone is saying something is expensive, it's all about what is the value, what does it add to your life? Like if it's a piece of artwork, does it bring you love and joy when you look at it? If it's a service of some kind, what are the results that you're getting? These are things we have to ask ourselves. And then also know for things that are creative, where it's more subjective, that value, that it's important for us to honor that. And even if some people don't like it or are critical, just to keep working at it and find those there's all kinds of stories of, artists, authors, all kinds of creative people who weren't valued by certain people, but then ultimately they were super valued. J.K. Rowling is one of them. And I know she's somewhat controversial for some of her beliefs right now, but nonetheless, as a creator, you can really respect what she's done. And she got rejected by, I think it was 12 or 13 publishers
13.
before someone said yes. Or you look at someone like Van Gogh, who was very much a starving artist in his lifetime, and look how valuable his paintings are, like hundreds of millions of dollars now.
Yes.
So just because there are people telling us, potentially something isn't valuable or they don't like it, whatever, that is not an objective like statement. That is someone's subjective opinion. And you just need to find those who do value and appreciate what you offer.
Mm-hmm. And on that point, do you, because valuing oneself, it takes a lot of self-confidence. And I know myself, I got a lot of times these imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, am I gonna charge all this for this package of classes, or this package of coaching, or whatever it is that I'm doing? I start getting all these like doubts and questioning, and it's like a this crazy circle going around my head. Do you get that? Have you experienced that? And how do you move forward with that? Because I know it would
hmm
get a lot, especially when it's time to charge.
I think it's very normal to experience that. And I think it's helpful to just keep learning and understanding about business and strategy and cultivate a circle that values you, like I talked about before. And so this could be either your clientele or, friends. I've had a huge shift in my social circle since I started business, and I had to have stronger boundaries. And I realized there were a lot of people in my life where it was almost like I was energetically giving them free sessions, like I was just boosting them up and trying to help, be a good friend or whatever, but in a lot of draining situations. And what I found so helpful and important to be successful and reduce that imposter syndrome was also connect myself and surround myself with positive, inspiring, and supportive people. So I think that's really crucial. And if you really are struggling with imposter syndrome, feed your mind with positive information, inspiring stories through podcasts, through reading, through courses, and then also mentors and peers that are doing the things or working to do the things that you want to do. I think all those things are really important.
Nice. Yeah, I think definitely do that whole positive mindset really helps you to start doing little changes here and there. And once again, trying to know what your value is as an artist, as a creator, and the things that you're apporting to others. Definitely that's something that has helped me, as you mentioned. How has art changed your life?
Oh my gosh, in every way. I mean, I think it depends on how you define art, but I think art includes almost anything creative. And so for me, it's everything. That's what my parents did when I was a little kid. I was surrounded by creative people. I created music. I started writing music and singing when I was very young, and doing visual art. And I also started writing when I was in school, and then have written books and screenplays and TV pilots, and many different things. So I think that ultimately, in many ways, we are literally here to be artistic and be creators in one form or another. So whether it's something that's labeled art or some other kind of creative endeavor, like inventing something, but we are literally here to be made in the image of the creator. And I don't think that means like, an old man on a throne or whatever. I just mean like we are here to create. We're literally here to impact the world through our own vision and ideas and creativity. So I think it's supremely important.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. We are all creators, and I think we do forget a lot about that. And just to add to your point that pretty much our life has a lot of artistic things that move and change our ways our life. It's good to point that out because I feel like a lot of people are like, no, 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 I'm just all about business, or like I'm doing this and that, but they don't really acknowledge that their Ferrari that they bought was created by someone artistic and made it all cool and pretty or whatever. And so, or the clothes that they're wearing, it was by also by someone that had a vision of like, oh, look, what about if I put some, I don't know, lions and chains and whatever it is that you like, right? So I think we forget that art in general rules our lives pretty much in a lot of different ways.
Oh yeah, from someone designing the clothes or the jewelry that we wear, the makeup, or the houses that we're living in. There was architects that did design those, and then all the little house things. There were designers that created those. Obviously, most of us are consuming a variety of creative content online and media, music, television, even just watching the news. Someone's creating those graphics, and there's producers
Telling
creating
you
the
a
content.
story.
Exactly. So it touches every area of our lives. And I feel like things that involve creativity, work that involves creativity and health and wellness are two of the biggest growing sectors for people to make money. They're both hugely important. And I feel that we really need art and creativity for our soul, just like we need certain things for our body. I mean, I feel like if you don't feed your soul, you actually can develop physical illness as well.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned that. Someone else told me, well, she said, creating art or making art is a self-care thing. And I
Yes.
was like, yes, that's what I couldn't put it into words, but that's exactly what it is. And I thought it was great. I was like, you're totally right. Even though a lot of people, they're like, not an artist. I don't draw. I don't paint. I don't sing. I don't dance. I have two left feet. I feel like even if you're none of those artist type, or you don't feel like you could be a pro, I don't even think it matters. I think as long as you're doing or creating something, it will really change you.
Absolutely. And I think it's up to us to make it happen. Like it's never going to feel like a convenient time to write a book or a screenplay or create a piece of art or write a song. It just literally there's always other stuff to do. There's always practical stuff, quote unquote practical stuff that's going to get in your way. And I'm a big advocate of making space for that. Like it's like I need to go to the doctor or I need to do whatever. And I just got home today actually from I call them createcations. So I booked a hotel to work on a book that I'm working on. And I
Okay.
can't tell you how amazing it was. So I just recently moved. So, at home right now, I'm still, unpacking, kind of reorganizing for my new space. And I love it. It's great. But it's just not until I get things settled. It's not an environment where I have the sort of mental space to create in the way that I want to. And so doing something like that, whether it's taking a class, going to coffee, going to studio, doing a creation, to have that time and space for your creativity is super important. And I feel so much calmer and more grounded
Mhm.
and energized after doing this, little staycation. And I love how the universe can support you. I'm just going to tell the story about this because I had some like
Yes.
points. And so I got a really great deal, even like to start with. And then I had some points that I submitted for the stay. And then I had a minor issue. It was no big deal. But because of that, in the hotel, they took off my resort fee. So I was staying in a 5-star hotel and I paid $20 for the night. And I feel
Yes.
like that was the universe being like, here you go. Like it's so worth it, right? I mean, I spent like some people spend that on Starbucks or whatever. and
Exactly.
I will pay. I certainly have paid, like, let me tell you, I've paid a lot of money for hotels. It's not that I won't pay, but I also felt like it was the universe being like, you're totally supported in this endeavor. So just do the thing, take the class, book, the creation, staycation, studio time, like whatever it is that you need, it will come back and be rewarded for you.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't have to be a long time either. You could just do it for a
No.
little bit. Even you could just while you're washing your dishes, if you play some music and start moving a little bit. Well, however you want to start with.
I think there's all kinds of ways we can incorporate little bits of creativity and expression in our daily life. And I also think it's really valuable to have really dedicated time where that we're not multitasking. We're literally like, I'm in a
Oh,
hotel, I'm working on my book. I booked a recording studio, I'm working on this music. I'm taking this class. I think they're both important. Find little ways in your life and then also take that time and, spend energy and resources to make things happen for your bigger vision. I mean, I have now released 8 books, and I also would not be in my life and career where I was if I hadn't done those. And every time I have so much resistance. So I just want everyone to know it's not like, oh, I've written all these books and now it's like a breeze. And I still have to fight that kind of imposter syndrome, like also just resistance to creating. And that's why I've learned to do these kinds of things where I just book a night in a hotel or go to a coffee shop because I know that it's worth it. But I also know that I need the space and kind of support to make that happen.
hmm yeah. And I mean, I've said it before too. We scroll through our phone at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
Oh, and
doing
most people are
nothing.
honestly doing it for hours. There's literally hours, and people say I'm too busy, and that yeah, they're spending an hour or two frequently on social media a day. And I'm not, I get it. I love social media. It can be really fun to watch TikTok or Instagram videos or, just kind of scroll through Facebook. But I think we also really, in the bigger picture of things, when we do something that feeds and nurtures our soul and also that impacts the world, creates such a big impact on our own lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understands that, creating art, doing art, it is a self-care, and you will react different to the world. You could be a better mom, better dad, son, daughter, worker, whatever, artist, but you do need to put the time. It's not gonna just happen magically, like, here I am. I'm an artist now. You do have to put some time, and you have to, as we are talking about it, just cultivating the whatever art that you're doing. And you don't have to dance, you don't have to write, you could paint, you could create poems. I mean, there's such a variety of things. I even had a guest that said, my art is gardening. And that's what I love. The whole art of putting the seeds and creating all these things, and then later the flowers and all these things. So pretty much it could be anything, any craft, anything that you really loved, and that's making you create or think about something else than work and home and everything else that happens in your life.
Absolutely. And the truth is that a lot of times it's the little things that we do that have the biggest impact on our lives. So there's a book called The Compound Effect, which I love and I would definitely recommend. And it's written by a guy who talks just about that very principle. So for example, if you have a penny and you double it every day, it only takes like, I think over 20 times, and you have like millions of dollars. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but because the compound effect, like that compounding interest or whatever it is, whether you're talking about money or energy. And so literally, if we spend 15 minutes a day doing something, so maybe it's an exercise, or maybe it's 15 minutes a day working on a, book project or whatever it is, over a long period of time, it can have a massive impact on our lives.
Mm-hmm. And even when you don't think you can. I mean, I never thought I was going to have a podcast or write a book or do all these routines that I've done or competed professionally around the world. But it's something that, I loved it. And I was really, how did I say this? I love to do dance, and I love to write, and I love listening to podcasts. But I was very like, no, that's not for me. But until that moment, that change of mind, when I was like, you know what, I think I can do it. I think I could just give it a try, even if nothing happens. And I think that opened to me a big, the biggest possibilities now. And I know I could write another book. I could start another podcast. I could do anything that I want, pretty much, because art is not, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It's just whatever it is that you create.
Absolutely. And we grow over time. You look at someone like a Picasso, and it's interesting to see his like early works. He shifted a lot over time. But you know what? Even his early works now, because he got so well known, are still really valuable, just his little sketches and things like that. So I think many people compare their sort of journey, where they are in the journey, with someone who's spent a lifetime cultivating their gifts. So the best way I can describe it, I think I heard a quote of something like, so too often people are comparing their rough ingredients to like the final masterpiece of a master or something. Like, just give yourself that patience and let yourself learn and grow, and don't judge yourself. A child does not learn to walk immediately. The statistic I've heard is that on average, when a child is learning to walk, they fall 17 and a half times a day.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we've all gone through that process, presumably most of us who, are able to walk. And, we're not like, as a baby, like, you know what, this just isn't working out for me. I'm just gonna crawl. I'm just gonna crawl my whole life. So as children, we just automatically have that strive. We just know what we want. We want to walk. We want to do whatever we want to do. And we just keep going until we get it. But as adults, I think people often just fall into that bad pattern of like, oh, it didn't come to me easily. So maybe it's not for me, or it's not aligned, especially in spiritual circles. I hear people saying, oh, I don't think it's aligned because it's not coming together. And pardon my French, but I think that's just bullshit in most of the case. So yeah, it's important for us to, if we really have a passion and a dream and a vision, just keep going for it until we create it.
Yeah. How important do you think it's just for the world to acknowledge that art, it's more than a hobby?
Oh, I think it's so important. And it's something that I think we have to go through this sort of paradigm shift as a people. And it's funny because so many things in life are art, and we appreciate it. We spend our money on it, movies and, we buy clothes and things like that. But somehow there's still this old idea that it's not valuable when it clearly is. So it's up for each of us to make that shift. And as we individually value ourselves, then the collective shifts as well. So for every creative person out there, I think start with valuing yourself. And if some people tell you you're more expensive or too much or whatever, then that is their opinion. And maybe you are for that person. I know that my pricing is not for everyone, and I have a lot of books and free content, and I'm like, so that's great. I have something for people at varying price points, but that doesn't mean that, laterally I'm too expensive. It just means that I'm too expensive for certain people, and that's okay. And that's always going to be the case. Who can afford Beyonce? Not a lot of people.
Or
Right?
Madonna.
Right. But you know what? There are those who can, and that's amazing. And I love that. And so wherever you are in your pricing or your value, there are going to be those who can afford it and will appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I think we are so many people in the world, a lot of us. There's so many millions and
Billions of people.
billions. Sorry. So if you just get 1% that will like to pay your prices,
A fraction of a percent. Honestly, it's enough for most people. The truth is, if someone is, you know, charging an X number of dollars, they probably only need a small number of people to
Sure.
actually support them. So it's the idea of like having patrons, and also if you charge a higher price point, then you need even less. So for now, I have books, and people can buy my books, or have, DIY, kind of online courses people can consume. But in terms of my clients, I have a pretty small number of clients that pay a higher rate, and I'm very happy with that. It works out great, so there's all different kinds of ways to make it work. But I think it's important for people to know you don't need a large, you know, supporting list or customers or clients base to really make a good living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just really important to keep in mind, because I think with all these like social media, I feel especially when a lot of people gets hung up on like, oh, I need like 1 million followers to make all this money. And I think that was one of the things I took from you, like that I learned from you, that is that you don't have to have all these 100 customers so you can make this much money, because you could value yourself higher and have a third of all those people that you thought you needed, and you will work less too. It's one of those things that it's hard to understand, but it just makes so much sense, and you will be so much better too.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a simple level, the numbers just add up the way that they do, but you can have, 10,000 people spend $1, and you can have one person spend $10,000, and the money's the same. And I'm fairly sure that you're going to do more work to do those $10,001 sales. And by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't have something at that price point if you want, but it's just always important to remember there's many different ways to sort of slice and dice it. And people, especially creative people, artistic people, tend to think more money equals more work. And actually, it's often just the opposite.
Mhm.
Some of the wealthiest people I know hardly do anything. because they've learned to leverage, they've learned these sort of principles, and things are getting done in their business. But for example, they're not doing it. So like now I have a full-time assistant, and gosh, I'm so grateful to be able to do that. I didn't start out that way. I started out with an assistant working 5 hours a week because that's what I could afford at the time when I was new in my business. And now I have a full-time person. So things are still happening in my business, but I am not personally doing a lot of the stuff that I used to do, updating my website, sending my newsletters, scheduling, those kinds of things, which are time consuming. So it's important for all of us to remember that it's not necessarily more money, more work. In fact, just the opposite can happen, especially when we develop a team and support for what we need.
Yeah. So for all the artists out there listening, know that this could be a very preferable work and job that you could do. You could really make money. You don't have to keep that mindset of the starving artist. And just to finish up this amazing conversation, what will you say to all those people that still like resisting to be creative, to make that time, for them to know that this is something amazing that they're probably missing out?
I think take baby steps. So read books, connect with those who are doing what you want to, even if it's just at that next level. And I highly encourage people to take classes or find a mentor, someone who preferably is at that next level or higher of what you want to do. So someone who has walked that path already and has felt those struggles and gone through those difficulties, especially in terms of mindset. I tell you, the biggest challenge is often our mindset and our beliefs. And if you change your mindset and your beliefs, anything can happen, because literally almost everything that is in our lives is based on what we think and what we believe. So you change your thoughts and your beliefs, your world will change, period. And I've experienced that. I grew up, poor, like I said, from this family of, starving artists, creative, but like without money, on public housing assistance, free school lunches, all the things. And then to developing a successful business where I have a team and I travel as I want to. This past 2 months, I've gone to London for the music studio. I went to Egypt, Cairo, Giza, and Sharm el Sheikh. And I'm likely going to be buying property out there because I love it so much. I went to Memphis and Nashville and Tennessee. I went to Puerto Rico. And these are all, I just created a lifestyle where I can do these things and I don't have to ask anyone for permission to go travel. I'm living in this gorgeous house in Las Vegas. I regularly have incredible, very luxury, experiences here in the city and elsewhere. So, to go from, really poverty. So, and when we were in France, we had no toilet. We had running water plumbed into the kitchen, but went out into the gutter. So we had an outhouse. We had a coal stove. Like, we were really poor. So I just wanted to give people that sense of, where I came from in terms of my upbringing to where I am now. And I just want everyone to know, wherever you're starting from, huge quantum leaps are possible. And it doesn't have to even take that long.
That's drop the mic moment. Thank you, Laura, for all this information. Thank you for sharing, your story with us today. I hope everybody, start creating little art here and there, dance, write, paint, anything. It will really, really change your life in a very special way. It's self-care. What else?
It is. And when you feel that soul desire that everybody has to make an impact, to create, to express yourself, it makes everything in your life better. I promise. So just take that time, start small if you need to, but just keep going and connect with others that are doing the same, and your life will change. And I'm just cheering all of you on. And I love to hear from people. So feel free to reach out if you're going through these positive life changes. I love to hear about it.
Yes. Where can they find you, and where can they find all your services? Because you are coaching for podcasting. You're also coaching to be the new writers, and a bunch of other courses that you offer.
Yeah. So I teach psychic training, and then I also do psychic readings. That's on my website, healingpowers.net. And I have my podcast, Healing Powers Podcast, which is on all the major podcast platforms. And then my coaching work for podcasting, for writing, real estate, anything else that interests you is powershour.biz. You can reach me at bookings at laurapowers.net. And then you can find me on social media, Laura Powers 44, the number, on Instagram. And then I'm also on Facebook. So yeah, just reach out to me however you like. And thank you so much, Alex. It's always such a pleasure to connect with you. And it's so exciting to see all your amazing shifts and things that you're creating as well.
No, thank you. By the way, everyone, she's one of my mentors, and I couldn't be here without her. Like, she was really like the pushing point for me. So I am so blessed and to talk to you. And thank you for the chat today. For everyone that wants to find out more about my show, you can find me on all social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere else. Remember, also, my book is out and you can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's called Parents Are Greatest Teachers. Thank you, Laura, again for being here today. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.